Welcome to a new video in my home automation series. I don't know if you remember my review of the LinknLink smart home products. I did the review on these two guys, the eTHS and the eMotion, back in January 2024, and this one in August 2024. So these are a temperature humidity sensor, this is a motion sensor, and this is basically an infrared blaster from LinknLink. And up until now, they were available in their own LinknLink application. You can control them, you can create scenes and everything, as you usually do with these devices. But now they have been upgraded. So there is a new firmware that you can upload to them. And now they enable MQTT connection. So guys like me who rely on MQTT for most of my communication, I can use them directly. I can talk to them. I can get the data out of them directly. And I can integrate it into my home automation system. And of course, if you have Home Assistant, then these devices show up in Home Assistant automatically. Paul Hibbert has a good video on that, so I'm not going to replicate the Home Assistant part, but I'm going to focus on how actually the MQTT stuff works. So if you want to include it in your home automation setup, which is MQTT based, you can now understand how, what topics they send the data in, and how you can control them. And of course, I'm just going to fire up Node-RED as well, and then just, get the data and show you how you get it in Node-RED. So let's get started. As I said, not all of the products are supported. There is one more product which I reviewed, the eHub, that doesn't receive this new firmware functionality, but the eHub basically has the same stuff as the temperature and the humidity sensor and the ER, more or less. So if you are looking for these specific functions, then well, you have these three products to choose from. So the first is this eMotion. And now there is an eMotion Max. This is an older eMotion. This is so that's basically just the motion sensor. So it is a radar motion sensor. And this one is the eTHS. I have a mosquito here in the room. And the last one, that's the eRemote. So this is the infrared remote. Just in case you are not interested in all the details, let me just cut to the chase and show you how it works. So this is MQTT Explorer, so you can see all the MQTT traffic on my server. And once you plug in these devices, you will notice that they start to appear for me, they are available under Home. I'm not sure whether this is a default or because the app can handle multiple homes, maybe that's the default name of the home. So if you have multiple homes or you define a different name, maybe the root topic is going to be different. But after that, you see all the different sensors. So the humidity looks like this. So you can see that, the temperature and the humidity sensor is the first one. So you can see that it has a long ID_T_HUM for humidity. And within that, there is a status value where it sends the data in JSON. And it looks like that for some reason it's missing the decimal places. So 2330 is actually 23 degrees 0.30. And the same for the humidity. So this is 38%, 38.23%. When you do this in Home Assistant, then everything shows up with the correct value. I'm guessing somewhere in this Home Assistant thing, they have some definition where they described how the value should be read, and the scaling factor or something like that. Anyway, but we can easily correct that in Node-RED, so I'm not really worried about that. And then the motion sensor is coming through like this. So long ID_M, and the status is PIR_detect, and it either sends 1 or 0. Well, I'm right here, so it sends 1 because motion is detected, or presence is detected. And then we have all these different topics for the remote, because I have already configured my TV remote for the eRemote. So then it knows all the TV commands like, mute, power, volume up, channel down, up next, and all these that it supports. And you can see that that all of them just have a subtopic which says available, which basically it just gets injected whenever you power up the device. So that it just means that that device is configured and it's available for use, but doesn't really do anything. But what is important is that whenever you want to send a command, then on the id/press command, then you just send the text, let's say power, and that text is is the same as you see here in these, advertised topics under the after the underscore. So if I want to mute, then I have to send into this press command the mute. So that's easy. I mean, that's fairly easy to understand how it works. And of course, the only way I was able to figure this out is I also fired up my Home Assistant. I have a test Home Assistant instance, which I don't really use. I only use it occasionally for testing. And of course, when I've configured this new remote, then that new remote, all the buttons, they just appeared as new entities in Home Assistant. And when I pressed on this, I just notice this new command being sent. I mean, I could see the messages in MQTT Explorer, and I was able to figure out that all you need to do is you need to send the name of the button into this topic. And by the way, you see all these long IDs. Once I open the application, we are going to see how to see those IDs and how you can tell which one is which. And probably this is a good time to actually talk about the upgrade. So I'm here in my LinknLink application where I have all the devices configured. So obviously you would use the LinknLink application, you create an account, you set up your devices. Most probably you have to go through the firmware update process, and then after that you can configure the MQTT server. And from that point onwards, you don't really need the LinknLink application anymore if you only want to use the MQTT features. So let's pick the TH sensor. So you can see the details here. And if I go into the three dots and then settings and then firmware update, you can see that I have this particular version of the firmware. And, before that, there was an update button here, and I could just, click on that, and it would take a couple of minutes for this to upgrade. And then once you have done that, you go back to the main menu and the main page, and back under the three dots, now you can see an MQTT connection. Well, three things about that. First of all, this MQTT connection did not appear to me. So after going through the upgrade process, I think I had to, kill the application and then start it again, because otherwise that option would not appear. So make sure that you do that, either restart your phone or just, close the application and start again. But after that, you have this MQTT connection. And as you can see, you can set up the MQTT server details, which is the IP address and the port number, which is by default 1883, and the user ID and the password. I don't see any options for security, so I assume this only works with unsecure MQTT connections, which is the one that usually have locally, so that's fine. You can connect to those. Again, when you type the account and the password, it tries to do the first letter capital. Make sure that you turn it off. I don't know if the MQTT logon is case sensitive, but my passwords are obviously not start with a capital letter. So just make sure that you type them correctly. And that's it. When you press save, then this screen is going to disappear, and then hopefully you will see the messages on your MQTT. So maybe if you use MQTT Explorer like me, then you would see those messages popping up in various topics. And then pretty much the same applies to the motion sensor. So if I go there and I go settings and then firmware update, I was going through the same process. You can see that the version is the same, and I have exactly the same options in MQTT connections. You have to set this up for every single device. So you can't just copy and paste. So as many devices you have to go through upgrade and then setting the MQTT connection. When it comes to upgrading the eRemote, the process is a little bit complicated, because then the automated update doesn't work. So the way you can do this update is that you go into the same screen. So you go to the eRemote, click on the three dots, you go to settings, you go to the firmware update page. You can see it here, firmware update page. But then on the top of the screen, there is a button which is called URL, and you have to copy or paste this URL into it. I mean, I just typed it in. And then you have to click OK, and then it's going to go through the update process. But what happened for me is that at the end, I got this message that the update is failed. Updating is failed. But then, as this document says, the LED on the device was actually flashing, which means that the device has actually completed the setup and now it is in like the pairing mode. So now I had to repair the device to the the LinknLink application. And to add the device, you are back on the main screen. You click on the plus on the top right corner. You select Add Device, add the new device, and it's E-Series. And then it's going to be the eRemote. Where is the eRemote? The IR hub, which is right on the top. And then, yeah, make sure that the button is flashing. Yeah, you want to do that. And you want to do done. And then you follow the on-screen instructions. Again, it's going to ask you for the SSID and the password, but eventually you will be back in the device. So that means that basically this firmware update process just resets the device and then you have to pair it again, which means that anything that you have paired remotes is going to be lost. So unfortunately, you have to do the whole process again. And since we are here, let me just show you those IDs that I just mentioned previously. Hopefully everything is going to be visible on the screen. So if I go into my TH sensor and go to settings, and then I go into device info, now you can see that up here on the top, I have the PID and the DID. And you can see that the topic is actually made from these two values. So let me just, so that's the temperature and the humidity sensor, so the eTHS, and you can see like 7CAC000, so that's the end of the PID, and then it starts with E04B4, which is sort of like the middle of the the beginning of the DID without the leading zeros. So again, if you have multiple devices and you can't really tell which topic is from which device, well, you have to go into the device info and then it's going to tell you. It works exactly the same way for the temperature and the humidity sensor. For the eRemote, it's going to be slightly different because in the eRemote, those topics are not describing the eRemote, but the individual devices that you have configured in the eRemote. So now you can see that I have a TV, which says HCL TV, and if I go into three dots here, property, device info, then again I have the same stuff. So you can see that the PID starts with so it looks like that it's missing the first couple of characters, but then you see the topic starts with 4100 and you see the 4100 here. And then it sort of ends with 008, which is also here. So yeah, it doesn't include the PID, it only includes part of the DID, but I guess you can just, you can just figure out which one is which. If the, all these options wouldn't give a clue. I mean, maybe if you have multiple TV remotes, then you won't be able to tell which power is which. Okay, that's cool. So I think what I'm going to show you now is maybe I'm going to use this opportunity to configure something new. And actually, this is why I have this LED strip here, because it has a controller which has an ER input, and then it comes with this remote. So I'm trying to juggle too many things at the same time. So you can see that if I turn it off, turn it off, then it turns off. And if I turn it on, it turns on. Okay, so let's try to set this up as a new remote device in the eRemote. So I go to the eRemote and I click on plus, because that process is again a slightly bit different. And I think, yeah, they have a light strip. So they have all these devices which come with a predefined set of buttons. And we have a completely new screen here, which asks whether I want to set this up so it works with Home Assistant, so with the MQTT integration, or only in the app. So I want to, pick the first one with Home Assistant. And yeah. Okay, and I said I cannot find my brand remote. Let's say this is going to be in the office. Yeah, next live strip, save. Rope light. Okay. And then I want to use the device now. Okay, so let's see, I want to do the on, and and say start learning. Okay. And let's turn it off. And then let's use the eRemote to see if... Oh yeah, it worked. Yes. Wonderful. Let's do the off. Start learning. Off. Okay, let me turn it back on. Let's try it with this. And it works. Good. Let me see if I want to teach any other buttons. Color temperature more. Let me do the white. Sorry, the red. Start learning. Red. Okay, turn it on. It's an orange, but... Oh, yeah. Because I pushed this button, not the R button. No. Let's try again. Try again. Red. Oh, cool. Okay. Let's assume it works. And then let me do more. Let me do the... Where are the other colors? Yeah. White. Where is blue and the others? Maybe we do button 1. Start learning. That's green. And button 2 is going to be blue. Okay. Let me test again. Off works. On works. And then I can do red, and then green, and then blue. Yeah, it all works. Anyway, but let me change screens. Oh yeah, you have the rope light here. But let me also change screens because something else interesting is happening. Whilst I was learning all these buttons, these came through as different topics. So now you can see that oh, interesting. This is new to me because it looks like that it combines the power into several different options. But then you can see that all the additional buttons, they work exactly the same as before. So I can do the red, the customize 1, customize 2, those were the special buttons that we are assigned to blue and red. Sorry, blue and green. So if I go back, actually, I don't know how I can do all the screens. I probably can't do all the screens, so you just have to believe me that it's going to work. So I am going to use the press command and and use this, and then I lose the underscore stuff, and then it's going to be red, and I publish. Oops, I have to publish again because I didn't hold up the sensor. But let me change the views. Now it changed to blue, and previously it was red. It was blue. Sorry. So now I changed it to blue with the remote. But if I do publish again, yeah, it works. And then let me change the view. If I change this to customize 1, customize 1, I think that's going to be green. So let me change the camera, and I click on publish, and it's green. I mean, the color looks weird in this camera, but it's green. Okay, cool. So probably the last thing to test, which is, I have to admit it's completely new to me because I didn't get this complex message before. But what I can assume, the way it works, that into the press command, maybe I need to send the same inject and send the same JSON, and probably it's going to react to that. So let me do this, and no. So for this, probably I have to fire up Home Assistant and then try to do the same from Home Assistant and see how it works. Okay, so that was a little bit less painful than expected. I have this test Home Assistant running on a Raspberry Pi 3, I think, so it is fairly slow. But at least we should see that we have some notifications because we have some new devices. And then if I come here to MQTT, well, okay, it knows, it sees some Shelly stuff as well. Yeah, MQTT, entities, devices, rope light, yeah, so, oh, light from eRemote, so it works, yeah, I think, so the way it behaves differently because it can identify all the three main entities of a light, like, you know, whether it's on, the brightness and the color. So that probably is treated differently. So here we are in the MQTT Explorer. So I think I'm going to delete this because, yeah, I just don't want to see any of these. So you go back to Home Assistant and then let's say you turn this off. Oh, by the way, I turn it on, and if I turn it off, it actually turned off now. So if I change the view, now you can see it's off, and then Home Assistant has sent the message that it needs to be turned off. So let's see what, you see it sends a switch 0. So this has a separate switch action. So if I send switch 1, change view, clicking on the button now. Yep. So that's how you turn it on. So anything which is light related, how you turn this on and off. So switch and then you turn it on. And then probably, yeah, I should have configured the color and the brightness as well. So I can configure the color and the brightness because then Home Assistant would be able to control that as well. But actually, let me see if I can make changes in, oh no, so this one only supports on off, and it is turning on the LEDs on and off, so it doesn't really have anything else. Oh yeah, that's just history, and that's the settings. There's nothing here. Okay, cool. So if I want to do anything else, I would probably have to configure the different buttons. And you can see that it, you know, customize 1, customize 2, now the color changed to blue. And then you can see that it sends the same press command, so now it sends customize 2. And then if I want red, which it did change to red, then it says red into the press command. So in general, for most of the generic stuff, like, you know, TV remotes, hi-fis, that sort of stuff, it's going to create a bunch of these topics with the underscore, and you have, you know, with the underscore and the name of the button, and then you have to send that to the press command subtopic. And then, you know, when you are putting this topic together, just remember that you have to use the base of this ID, which is in front of the underscore. So that's probably is going to work for, you know, most generic buttons, TV remotes, and for example on this LED strips all the colors, and what other buttons I have, you know, sleep and brightness, mode, plus, minus, that sort of stuff. And then when you have something special like the like a light, then it sends it to a separate switch command. So unfortunately, if you configure something again fairly specific like an AC, it would have like these special topics as well, which I wouldn't be able to tell what they are. So if you want to use them, you might have to just use Home Assistant in order to explore how the you know, the topics and the messages need to be sent, because obviously this is primarily designed for Home Assistant, so Home Assistant knows what it needs to send. And let me just check something else in the application. So in the app, I also have button for brightness. So I have different buttons for brightnesses, but on the remote I just have a brightness plus and minus button. So I don't think I would be able to map it here, because then the system wouldn't know how to do 60% brightness, because obviously the buttons, physical buttons that are available on the remote are relative to the existing brightness. So like this one. So you won't be able to, you know, create all of these options. You see I have one for speed and the mode and the brightness, and obviously I don't have the corresponding buttons here on the remote. So I mean, I have light plus and minus, so probably that's the only thing I can do. Let me just do light plus. So that's probably this. And yeah, it is working. Oh, actually, I think it's this light plus and minus is probably something else. Maybe they think it's the different the different effects. But if I do this, it is getting dimmer. And if I do this, yeah, it is getting brighter. So these are, you go back to the computer screen. So you can see the new topics all of a sudden appeared, dim and bright. So you can see send the word dim and bright into the press command topic. So that's good. And if I go back to Home Assistant, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, dim and bright are available here as well. So if I do, yeah, dim, it works. So it sends the dim action, and we can see, yeah, press command dim. So yeah, it works, and but that doesn't really change the fact that I can't really do anything else here. Cool, so this is how light switching works, and some of the other things work. So that's cool. And actually, I think with this, I'm done with the phone itself. And then maybe we can do some stuff in Node-RED. So let me just fire up Node-RED and then see what we can do in Node-RED in order to read these values. And I'm going to change the view because there is hardly any space available on the screen. So MQTT in, MQTT in. So I want to connect to the local broker, and then let's see the let's say the temperature topic, which is this topic. And by default, I get the information in JSON. So I don't know how much we have to wait for the data, but I assume that, you know, once the temperature changes, it should publish a new value. Or maybe I'm just going to unplug it and plug it back again. But then we need to change this. So in order to update, so I think what I'm going to do is the payload is equals and message.payload divided by 100. Okay, and let me just power cycle this eTHS, because probably that's the quickest way for me to get a new data published, because it doesn't have a physical button. And I could probably have done the same for the humidity sensor, and I realized that I made a mistake because I clicked the wrong button. So message.payload.envtemp divided by 100, and then actually let me just make the same for the humidity, and that's _h. Sorry, _HUM, because the _M is the motion sensor, so it's actually HUM. and then it's on the status and env humid. So env humid. And probably I'm going to do a reboot again. Sorry, I don't have to put. You have to put $ for the functions, but not for referencing the values. So anyway, we just now have to wait until the new value comes again. And for the motion sensor, I think it's going to be fairly simple again. So that's the motion, and we have to look at this topic. Yep, status. And I think what I can do, I think what I can do is maybe I can just extract the value from the attribute. So it is sent as PIR_detect. And I can just say message.payload.pir_detect, and that goes into the payload. So that's just going to send a message 0 or 1. But then probably the other thing what we can do is we can do the other way around. So inject, I mean controlling the light. So inject, so we have to send an on, which, so we can send the on command to switch 1. So that's going to be 1 for on, and that's going to be 0 for off. And we have to send that to this command. So MQTT out, and we are going to send to this command, and we can just wire this like that. And then let me also do the colors. So the red is going to be red, and green is, I think green was customized 1. So stop, customize 1. And blue was customized 2. And then we have to send that not to the switch command, but to the press command. Oh, I should have copied this first. So that's the press command. And I can do that. And actually I can do the dim and the bright as well. Dim, and bright. And was it bright? Yeah, bright. Okay, and deploy. So I'm going to switch view because I think it's going to be more interesting to see the actual action. So I'm clicking on the on inject. Well, let me click on the off first. Wait. Let me spare you the moment because I realized that I've done the whole thing wrong. Because we have to put this into the topic, into the payload, not into the topic. So string 1, so I was putting it here instead of, I should have put it here into the payload. So nothing was working. So I need a string 0. And of course, we can ignore the topic because, yeah, the topic is not making any difference here. So let me just make these changes and I'm going to test it again. So basically just copy everything up to the payload as a text and then redeploy and let's try again. Okay, so this is take 2 and I'm going to click on the off. Hey, it turns off. I click on. Ooh, Let me do bright. Yep, it is getting brighter. Let me do dim. Oops. Wait, that was way too much. What happened? Maybe you should not send too many comments very close to each other. Now it's all over the place. Let me bring it back to bright. I have no idea what the dimming did. I mean, maybe I'm sending so many messages at the same time that the receiver is thinking it's another message because there is no much separation between the two. But let me do red. Okay, so we are in red. Let me do green. We are at green. So let me do blue. So we are at blue. So that's probably a good reminder that if you want, you can send multiple messages at the same time. Well, sorry, at the same time or one after the other. But probably it's the best that if you keep a little bit of delay, maybe I think 100 milliseconds should be enough. So if you plan to chain these events, you can use the delay node in Node-RED in order to just delay the message slightly. And I can turn it off and it works. Yeah. So it is really easy to use these, and as again, you have to make sure that, well, for this particular light, you send the on-off value, which is 0 or 1, to the switch topic, and then pretty much everything else you send to the press command topic. In terms of my TV example, you would send everything to the press command topic because it doesn't have so that switch doesn't work the same way. I mean, mostly because the TVs don't have an on and an off signal, they just have an on-off signal, which is, I mean, I just hate it because it's much harder to automate, because you send that signal thinking that you are going to turn the TV on, but if it was on, then you are going to turn it off. So if you want to do something like that, maybe you have to combine it with a smart plug which measures power consumption, and then from the power consumption you tell whether the TV is on already so you don't have to turn it on, or whether it's off already so you don't accidentally turn it on. So anyway, I'm not sure why I've decided that way, but it's all the TV remotes work this way. So then you send everything like power, mute, volume up, volume down, so everything that you see here. So you send those to the /press command topic. And I think we got some updates here. So now you can see that that was the PIR sensor, so sent to 1, which says motion is detected, and we also got some values. So 23.47 is temperature, and 36.28 is the humidity reading. So yeah, these are very easy to use in Node-RED. Of course, if you use Home Assistant, you just do the configuration in the app that I showed you, and then the new entities will start showing up in Home Assistant. So it's even easier. It is, I think, primarily designed for the Home Assistant use, and the integration works and the discovery works in Home Assistant flawlessly, even with the remotes. As you have seen previously, I just configured the new buttons and all of a sudden they just appeared in Home Assistant. So here, where's my Home Assistant? Yeah. So I haven't even pressed anything, did anything in Home Assistant. I just, trained the dim and the bright buttons, and yeah, they came up as new configuration options. They came up with the correct icon, and I just have a press option here, which I can do, and then it sends the data over to infrared to the device. So very easy to use, very easy to configure. And I think that's, that's a great integration. So if you're using Home Assistant, you buy these products, you set them up initially in the LinknLink application, you configure to the MQTT server, and after that, you can pretty much forget about the application. If you only want to use it in Home Assistant, you only need the LinknLink application for the initial setup and nothing else. And for me, for MQTT, the story is pretty much the same. I maybe have to do a little bit of more investigation just to figure out what the different topics and the messages are. But if you happen to have a Home Assistant, like if you have a SPA Raspberry Pi that you can just fire up a Home Assistant instance, again, it is very easy to do just for debugging purposes. I highly recommend to do that, especially if you are using a new device and you can't just figure out by looking at the traffic in the MQTT Explorer. But I think if you have viewed whatever I was trying to do here, and what I managed to do with the light strip and also the TV remote, you can probably figure out every other remote. At least let's hope that's going to be the case. But anyhow, I think that's going to be all for today. If you are interested in any of these guys, I'm going to leave purchasing links in the video description. But I think that's going to be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.